Okay, so on behalf of the LaRouche Political Action Committee, I want to welcome everybody here today to our changed location. My name is Dennis Speed. This is a temporary change, but I want to say the following. Lyndon LaRouche, who created what's called the Manhattan Project about a year and a half ago, and actually a little bit more, October of 2014, excuse me, is a unique individual who, on the day of September 11th, made statements that no one else made, and had made statements prior to September 11th, in January of 2001, that no one else had made. And he has stated, and I think this is true, that the citizens of New York City deserve the truth, and that the truth, if told, will result in the removal of President Barack Obama from office. We are going to start today by going, as from my discussion with Lynn earlier, directly to questions and answers. And so what I'd like people to do is to line up, unless, Lynn, you have anything you'd like to say at this point.
No, I think it'd be clinically advised to let this thing just plain flow out.
Okay, great.
Hi, Lynn. It's Alvin in New York, but what is increasingly becoming real to me is actually ground zero of the United States as things are heating up. Certainly watched and paid close attention to what Jeff Steinberg had to say last night, filling in a lot of the details of things that are have been generally spoken about and expressed by you for many years. Now, and clearly Graham's interview is useful in the real push, because it's clear to me that in the crosshairs now are Obama, the Saudis, Wall Street, and the Bush, of course, and with the British being the backers of all of this. Now, this theme of the FBI keeps becoming, while you've talked about it a lot, it seems to be becoming stronger and stronger. And here in New York, clearly you've been targeted, this organization has, and I think we have to guard against the type of, I've heard of some very kind of hostile things that are coming out in the streets at times. So I'd like for you, if you could help us again with this particular FBI operation here that we're about to break.
Well, I can frankly, the guy, the echo, I guess the echo will now have passed. Okay, no, this thing has been defined already. It is repeated again and again. I have been repeatedly an eyewitness to major aspects of the behavior which involved Manhattan, the threat in Manhattan and to Manhattan, and those kinds of things. So I'm fully aware and confident all the way from the origin of the FBI to its present existence. I know the whole thing essentially. I don't know every detail, but I know enough essentials to know that this whole smear is a smear.
Thanks.
Okay, next. And let me just announce two things, because there are a lot of new people here today. So at the point you come to the microphone, please state a question. Try to be short if you can. And if there's a follow-up, we'll take that. So that's just for, again, a number of people that are here. Also, if other people have questions, if you could line up here so that we can move along quickly.
With regard to the 9/11 and the FBI, I hear the FBI has a new anti-racism policy. Black or white, your life doesn't mean anything.
That's pretty fair, because that's a fair statement of the way you feel about this thing, and I'm highly sympathetic.
Thank you.
Next.
Okay.
Hi, good afternoon, Mr. LaRouche. It's Jessica from Brooklyn, New York. How are you?
I'm not so bad.
Good,
I could be better, but I'm not so bad.
excellent. I have a little cold, so excuse my little scratchy.
Me too, yes.
Uh, right. Okay. We've had a lot of activity this week. Um, I'm sure you've heard about Sunday when we were out in Battery Park and the World Trade Center, and we were leafleting and talking to people and doing a lot of networking. So, my question is, it's kind of a statement question thing mixed together, which is my usual. But I've called a lot of people in city council, actually just yesterday, Friday, and talked about the need to release the 28 pages and how they had to support that effort in Washington. And since they were New York City Council members, it was fitting and proper that they do so. And I'm getting kind of a 50-50 response. That seems to happen in the population too. And that old thing about what we talk about with the fear factor, uh, that's what I think is rising up. I also talked about Glass-Steagall because, you know, that's my thing, and it's all connected. So I'd like you to kind of comment on that fear factor thing and how we really, I feel the tension, and it's not really a tension, it's more of an excitement, but still a tension to escalate. And got on the phone and was like, you know, I was probably a little bit too aggressive, but that's okay. And but you know, the escalation has to take place, and I'm seeing all different reactions. And I'm thinking that that fear thing is probably a part of it, with the FBI, with the problems that we have trying to get Glass-Steagall passed. All of it is connected. And I'd like you to kind of comment on that.
I can give you a little personal detail. I was successfully a leader in a major organization, a professional organization in Manhattan. And the time came when someone said, "Well, the FBI wants to talk to you." And I said, "What do you need to talk to me about?" So anyway, they came back around my premises where I had worked. I was a leading figure in the profession there, and they went wild. They called all over the area in which I lived. They kept doing it and kept doing it. They destroyed my what had been my wife and drove her mad and made her rather evil in many respects. She's now deceased long since. But the point is that that's what happens. Now, if you look at the history of this whole process, you say the FBI was from the beginning, at the point that it became an instrument for eliminating Franklin Roosevelt as president. They took away his powers of organization as president, and this was done by a British foreign-based agency, which was still the FBI. And I have a lot of experience on this stuff, but I think there's too much experience to cover it all up in one time.
Okay. All right. I appreciate everything that you said. And just for, you know, the people that are in the room and the other people that we talk to, we have to overcome that fear. And I know you're the most inspirational person that I know. And whenever I think about it, I don't even think about it. I just make the calls, do what I have to do, let them know that they're jackasses, and keep it moving. Okay, thank you.
Hi, Mr. LaRouche. This is Rick from Bergen County, New Jersey. On the FBI issue, in 1971, well, let me back up. It became known in 1971 after a raid of an FBI regional office in Media, Pennsylvania, that the FBI had been maintaining something called a security index, which was basically an entirely subjective list of Americans who had not been guilty of any crime, not been proven guilty of any crime, and this list may have been of the order of thousands or tens of thousands of people, in conjunction with their regular spying activities and infiltration activities. And the mandate was that under the condition of a national emergency, undefined, these individuals were to be arrested and incarcerated without recourse to habeas corpus. This became known as a result of the raid of the FBI office in Media, Pennsylvania. Now my question is, many Americans would not have been aware of that unless these patriotic Americans had risked themselves and committed this act to get the information out. And my question is, could it have been said, even though one was not aware of it, could it have been said, was it correct to say that the United States was actually a republic, given that the executive branch and the Justice Department had agreed to perpetuate this type of activity without the knowledge of the public? Clearly unconstitutional activities. So could it be said that the United States was a republic, even if one was not even aware of it? And leading that up to today, can it be said that the United States is a republic unless those 28 pages are released, unless there's a logical follow-through of what comes out of that?
Absolutely. This was a foreign British organized operation which took over and became known as the FBI. This was the FBI which shut down the presidency of Franklin Roosevelt, even though he was at that time actively a president of the United States still. But he was disabled by the agency of the FBI. The FBI has been and always has been an agency of the British Empire. And the British Empire and the Saudi terrorists are the same people. The British agents and the Saudi terrorists are the same people. Obama is an agency of the same character, same collection. So the question is, if the United States, if the people of the United States stand up and say, look, if we give in again, we're finished. The rate of death in the United States will escalate still further throughout the United States. The United States will be destroyed by the FBI through the agency of the Saudi system and the British monarchy. The British monarchy is the mother, or the something or other, of all bad evils in the history of mankind in my lifetime.
Okay, thank you.
Hello, Mr. LaRouche. My name is Julie Ashcraft, and I really appreciate your being free speaking and a different voice than we often hear in the political discourse in the United States. And I really appreciate your support for the reinstatement of Glass-Steagall, because this is vital to our economy and even to jobs in New York for people who work in the financial industry, because it will help them to prevent as many abuses and as mismanagement, as well as preventing destruction to investors and to people who just want to be able to just use a bank. I am curious why there seems to be no mention of Mossad and some rogue elements of Israeli involvement in 9/11, because there's a lot of evidence pointing in that direction. There's a Israeli messaging service which pointed out that some Israeli people were given 2 hours notice before the implosion or whatever happened on 9/11 to the towers via their messaging service. There was also a van was reported to be full of explosives, and with 5 Mossad agencies caught on the way to the George Washington Bridge on 9/11. There were also about 200 so-called Israeli art students who were arrested prior to 9/11, who were going around to different governmental agencies, to offices, but also to homes of people who worked for different government agencies in the United States, and were targeting specific people trying to get into their homes. They were also found near nuclear plants in restricted areas, and it turned out they were not Israeli students, and many of them were found out to be for sure Mossad agents. So if you'd like to reply about that. Thank you.
Well, I can attest to the accuracy of the statement just made by her here. Because remember, in California, there was an operation being set up ostensibly as an Israeli instrument. And it was not. It was an FBI instrument and a British instrument. This thing was already there. For example, I was a supporter of the Israelis in Israel at the time that Israel was just initially established. And these were people who I worked with from the inside the United States into there, and I watched what had happened to the murderers of Israeli leaders who were not of the original breed. These are not the people who actually defended the fight against Hitler in Israel. But what happened is the process was that the people who were British controlled were actually the greatest enemies of that team of Israelis. It's still going on today. And so the point is that problem, the injustice against Jews in the United States and in Britain, but especially in the United States, because it's the United States, that problem has remained very difficult one to deal with. And it's derived, when people came from the generation that came out after Hitler, after the Hitler experience, they were doubly hurt, deeply hurt, in a way which is beyond most other parts of the world. And I know those friends. They're gone now, but I know them.
I'd just like to point out there was some Zionist terrorism involved with the founding of the Israeli state, however, with the bombing of the King David Hotel by which is known to be a Jewish terrorist organization, and they blamed the bombing of the King David Hotel on Arabs, and they even dressed as Arabs when they were setting this up. So unfortunately, because I hate to see Jewish people blamed for the behavior of some people who might be aligned with them. That's my standpoint.
Yeah, well, this is something I fought with years ago on this thing in the post-war period, because it came up in the late thing in the early part of the period. And we had a faction in a sense where we would be responsible. I was not Jewish, of course, but I was very closely associated with the Jewish community, especially those who were associated with the World War II period and its aftermath. So these are experiences that I've had. They're not always congruent with what other people have as views, but I know from me, my own standpoint, that I am still ready to display anger whenever needed under the situation.
Thank you.
Fine. Next question, please. See what you can do about the microphone. I'm having problems.
Hi, Lynn. It's Kay from the Bronx.
Good.
You made it very clear about the FBI today. I didn't know that they were really a British operation. You have made that clear. I know that they are a criminal part of a criminal government, and the Clintons are a criminal part of a criminal government. What I would like you to explain to me is why the FBI is after Hillary Clinton. It isn't that I think she's innocent, because I know she's not, but why are they targeting the Clintons at this time?
I don't think it's that specific. I think this is much more complicated kind of mixture of issues. Now, Hillary, unlike her husband, became a stooge for Obama. She was and is a stooge for Obama. She is her duty. She was part of the murder of the leaders in Europe, in Egypt, Egyptian area. Now she's been the criminal in this thing all the way through. She did it, and she bragged about it. She took credit for the assassination of officials of the United States who are performing services in that area of the world. And her husband was greatly embarrassed, because I was close to her husband at that time. And he was set up by the British and others. And his wife drifted off in a direction which was not his. And now he's got this rope around his head, and he's probably very angry, deeply angry in this whole business. But he's just going along with what he's going along with. And I don't know if he's going to be able to cope with that. But it's a terrible tragedy when a president of the United States, who in general had been a good president of the United States, and then his wife turns against him and he breaks him. Now, she's no good. She is absolutely no good. He's a different case.
So the FBI really does want to prosecute her?
That's joke time. I mean, she is protected by the FBI. What do you want?
Okay.
Go. Next question.
Hi, Lynn. So I was wanting to get your thoughts on the matter, because I mean, the other side of this, of course, is we don't know all that's behind some of these other layers that are moving on the 28 pages. We know that they're moving in our wake, but it's a wake you created long ago. So the question, of course, is why now? Obviously, it does occur in the context of a major buildup for war. Just one thing that came to mind is the discussion around the potential of Georgia and Ukraine getting into the steps to join NATO, which of course Russia has made numerous statements of that's a real red line for them. So these are the kind of provocations that are also occurring with China, provocation of the South China Sea. So it's very clear that this is the vector. And, like I say, we don't know exactly what some of these other forces around the motion that we see in the 28 pages, but that's clear. Now, the other thing that's happening right now, and is the whole line that's coming out that Obama is, he's really just trying to secure his legacy, and, there's all these, which gives him a cover to keep pushing this war front. And, I was just, maybe see if you have anything to say on this, but I was just thinking back to your the 2009 statement, I think it was April 2009, where you identified Obama as a clinical narcissist. And to me, there's no legacy that a narcissist has, I mean, what the... so anyway, maybe just the broader perspective, just to see what your thoughts are also on this war danger, because I don't think that can be overlooked as well.
Well, the war danger is immediate. Right now, we're on the edge of a general global war. Now, it's happening right now. Everybody who's supporting this president with their actions is guilty. The war is against China. The war is against India. The war is against nations in South and Central America, mostly. It is against the interests, essential interests of the members of the United States.
Thanks.
Hey, Lynn, I wanted to ask you about the 28 pages with regard to changing U.S. policy. I recently had the inspiring but also disheartening or maybe sobering experience of reading a book written by a Chinese scholar on the Belt and Road Initiative, laying out what China's plans are in terms of economic cooperation throughout the Eurasian continent. And in that book, they don't hold back from expressing their view of how the U.S. stands in opposition to many of the main objectives of the Belt and Road Initiative. For example, the U.S. creating containment in the Middle East through conflict, the pivot to Asia, the threat to economic supremacy and geopolitics of Brzezinski. This is all mentioned explicitly in this public book by the Chinese. So it leads me to want to ask you, how do you see the role of the 28 pages as a particularly powerful opportunity right now for changing the direction of the U.S. more broadly?
Well, I was at that relevant time in life where I was a leading official for the presidential terminal. Then they decided to get rid of me, and they put me in prison, and everything was a lie. And most of the people, in terms of even the prison system, knew that I was innocent. They just helped me in a sense, and they frustrated the people who were in the prison system who were supposed to kill me. So I've been through this kind of thing, and I know this kind of thing. And so I'm not really much influenced by it in any sense. I just know that this is no damned good. It never was any damn good. The last decent president that I saw was Bill Clinton, who was not a perfect person, but he was a decent person, unlike his wife today. And that's the way things go. That's the way history goes. And the point is that there is no justice in the United States as such. That is, there's no blanket justice in the United States since that process. And there is not a single person in the United States who is not a target of the FBI.
This is,
Hi, Lynn. This is Daniel. I want to ask you about the people of New York in terms of what is it that we need them to become? Because I find that we have a phenomenon that we're running into in many different ways, which is people say, I've given up or I can't find the passion to fight. And this is the time. This is the time to get a victory. I want to ask you your thoughts on what we need to create within the people of New York.
The people of the United States, and particularly the people of New York City, Manhattan, are in a peculiarly advantageous position to influence a greater ratio of the number of citizens, adult citizens, or quasi-adult citizens, and they are the marching orders. They provide the marching orders, which for the freedom of Manhattan in particular, from what Obama. That's what it really is. And the important thing is that Manhattan has a greater ratio of passion and support than any other part of the United States. Manhattan. And Manhattan must lead the United States in getting rid of the FBI and what it represents.
Thank you very much.
that's funny. Okay. Next question. Can you just the mic?
Yes, good afternoon, everyone. Good afternoon, sir. My name is Elizabeth. It's my first time here, but can you a little closer? Okay. My name is Elizabeth. My first time here, and I have a certain concern, and I know that there is a global war, different problems around the world. But right now, I'm from the tropical island of Puerto Rico, and in Puerto Rico, there's certain concerns with the crisis. This good example of the obstacles that we have. You know, Florida, many people are moving to Florida. And then, of course, the health issues are not being addressed in Puerto Rico. Puerto Rico cannot vote there, but we can vote here. So because of all these crises, the question I would like to do to the people, because I said, what can I do for the people to wake up and shake up? And pretty soon, in a few weeks, it's going to be the Puerto Rican parade, which is coming. And I intend to present a proposal to the Puerto Rican parade to be an awakening of the people to shake up, to wake up, and to do in terms of what's occurring not only here, out in Puerto Rico, but here. And things can be done. Any suggestions or comments, sir?
Yes, well, the point is this requires a general summoning up of commitment to a policy to throw corrupt organizations out of existence. Just throw it out. You have to get rid of it. You have to get rid of these diseases. Look what happened in Mexico, for example. I was a very close friend of the president of Mexico, and he was the last good hero in Mexico. And the FBI was which threw him out of office. And as a result of that, his being thrown out of office, Mexico degenerated in a horrible way with drug diseases, all kinds of things, mass killings. And the citizens of Mexico are terrified. And therefore, every one of us in every part of the world has to understand that these are the enemies. These are the categories of enemies, things we can pick up by bushel baskets full. Huh? And so it's not one issue. It's not this thing. The question is, how can we give the human species its rights to be human. And very few parts of the world as a whole are presently capable of representing true humanity, because they've been taken away from them. In Mexico, for example, the drug thing, which was, of course, Obama was a big supporter of the drug operation inside the United States when he was president already. He was a big supporter of the FBI in this operation. His associates were parts of that. To the point of what we all have in every significant nation of impact. We all have things that have to be cleaned away quickly and definitively. It's not one issue, it's not this nation, it's not that nation. It's the humanity as a whole. That's what's being crushed. You can't defend just one people. You've got to defend humanity as a whole. You've got to have laws that protect mankind as a whole, without exception. Yeah.
That's a nice thought for everyone, as ourselves. In fact, we're a minority. But the question is that some people are either innocent or they're ignorant, they don't know, they're in another world, they're blind, the people. So since they are the minority, what can we do to wake up the majority? To find tactful ways. For example, in the Puerto Rican parade, maybe it'll be their moment of silence. Maybe they're the extreme of making some noise and scream. Okay? What expressions or any one recommendation in terms of the words of action? Not the extreme, but in terms of the level of the people.
Well, you'll find that very few people, very few nations really have a good working understanding of these problems. The point is, the way to do it is to go and defend all people the best we can by setting a standard which all people have a right to share their own way, but to know that they have freedom. That's what we mean generally as human freedom, and everyone has a right to human freedom. Therefore, that's what you have to fight for. You cannot discriminate against some part of humanity. You've got to recognize that all of humanity, whether they're badly behaved or not, they are still human beings, and they have to be treated and developed as human beings. You don't improve people by trying to scare them. You improve them. You improve them by giving them a view that they have a right, and that they have other nations nearby who also have the same rights, and share those rights, and think about what the future of mankind is. What is important for mankind's existence? Very few people on this planet know. Time has come to wake them up.
I agree. We need to shake them up. That's what I like. I like action. Shake them up.
Good. You have something? Okay, why don't you just insert you, and then we got people on the back. Go ahead.
Hi. Again, my question is similar to what Daniel was raising in terms of the people here in this area who obviously we have a very important responsibility to the nation to get at this. And I was thinking of the difference between simply what people consider courage or courageous and another word which is defiant. And this came to mind when I saw the interview with the former deputy fire commissioner who heard about the Saudis trying to run financial warfare against the United States if the Congress were to pass legislation either on the 28 pages or to allow them to be prosecuted. And he said, who cares about their money? 3,000 American lives are worth more than that. And when you hear someone speak in that way, then a lot of smallness shatters, because what you realize is that what you've been tolerating or what you've been thinking you're fighting for is too small. And I think the courage, partly people have courage because you have to get over your fear of death. And the question is, what is worth dying for? Would I die for some minuscule detail of something, or would I die for something that is a principle that relates to mankind as a whole? So at any rate, it just struck me, because you keep saying that whenever you hear someone saying, I want to be practical, that they should be at least taken off the stage or worse. And I think that that is a function, in a sense, of the fear. So I'm not exactly sure how to better phrase this, but I think there's a quality of real defiance where you get to a point, as happened in East Germany, or you can think of certain leaders today like Christina Fernandez de Kirchner, who should have bowed to these vulture funds and she refused. That quality is what we need, and when people stand with that quality, then it has the effect of shattering the fear and the toleration, and people shake themselves and say, well, why was I putting up with that crap anyway?
Well, the first thing is you have to go back to the basics. And the basics are registered in the thinking and education of human beings. And if they don't have those abilities, then they're helpless to solve their problems. Now, but what's the whole thing all about? We're talking about humanity. What we're doing with it here, looking at this thing from Manhattan, what are we looking at? Now, Manhattan has a very peculiar, specific kind of case. It's a center for the summation of the people of the United States. It is the true point of summation of the development of the United States in principle. Now, there are a lot of errors in Manhattan, a lot of bad practices in Manhattan, or drunken practices, or whatever you want. But Manhattan is characteristic of the United States. It doesn't mean it's like many people in the United States. It means that the United States, as defined by Alexander Hamilton in particular, under his leadership, Lincoln and so forth, these figures represent a quality of mankind which is very special. And mankind represents that kind of very special nation and population. And that's what the issue is all about. Because what is the truth? What's the truth about life? We all die. All human beings so far on the record seem to have died. Therefore, what's the meaning of human life? The meaning of human life is to stimulate the education of people, the development of people, their skills, their aptitudes, their perspectives. And what you want is human beings who are better than any generation of human being beforehand. That's mankind's intention. It's not necessarily the intention of every person, but that's my intention for every human being. For example, that mankind must become something greater. What's going on in the universe these days? Pay some attention to the universe. Don't be so close tied. Galactic systems are dominant. They're crucial. Life depends upon galactical systems. So what do you want? You want a child to grow up and to become able to perform actions which no human being has ever been able to do on Earth. And that is the standard you have to measure by. Can you contribute to helping mankind children, for example, the children of parents who were not so smart. And you get those children to become educated, to develop in the way to deal with galactic factors, global, international factors, other kinds of factors. So mankind is not something which is born and dies. Mankind is something which is intended to live and to develop capabilities which mankind has not been able to do before. And don't think small, think big.
Thanks.
That's it.
Hello, Mr. LaRouche. My name is Mark Mercado. This is my first time here. This is my first time here, and I just
so I can hear you.
Can you hear me now?
I hear you.
Okay, can you hear me now?
Yes.
Yes, my name is Mark Mercado. I'm from New Jersey, and I have a cousin who's Senator of Baltimore, and I had in-depth conversations with her about Glass-Steagall, and there's other people that are involved in it. And when you mention Glass-Steagall, they're fully aware, but it's like a curse word. They don't want to shake up the status quo. They're really afraid to try to take that giant leap. And we as Americans, we as a people, we have social media today that's astronomical throughout the country. We have a youth that's all they know is social media. And if you ask any I have young nephews and all, I try to educate them and let them know what's going on and all, but they're like cattle. You can't, if it's not something that they can't, it's not a fad, or they can't enjoy it, or they have no interest. We have to wake up the youth. To piggyback off the last person, she was speaking. I'm part Native American. My people were we are the only cotton gin and black-owned cotton gin in North Carolina. So we've been here since America, before America was started, and we shouldn't be like cattle. What's going to wake us up? Does it always take a coup d'etat to make a change? We have to make a change. Each one of us sitting here today, everybody listening to you. I came aboard with you years ago, and I was astounded. I couldn't believe somebody finally, the truth, they say the truth will set you free. But why are we not free? Why are we not waking up? Everybody is just, they're going through the motions every day. They wake up, go to work, do what they got to do, but they're like zombies.
Well, I wouldn't say that. It's not quite that the case. But the problem is we have miseducated people in schools. We have miseducated the culture in human practice. The common things are, you are nothing. The common attitude, you ain't nothing. That's the common attitude. Who are you? What are you talking about? What do you say? Why do you say that? Who wants to hear what you have to say? That's the kind of thing you're talking about. The point is, the question is, what is a human being? A human being comes along, is going to die. Okay, then you're satisfied with that? Huh? Are you demanding that the human species collectively develop itself to become a superior species? And this is going to happen where? It's going to happen in the moon. It's going to happen in the moon in the coming two centuries, 2 years. And China is going to develop the backside of the moon and find out what the backside of the moon is made of. You're going to find in other phenomena of these tapes in space. The space is full of all of these kinds of things which will happen, which can happen. So don't give up on this kind of thing. Don't give up on that. The question is, reach out. Don't accept smallness. Do not accept smallness. Humility is one thing. Smallness is disgusting.
Thank you so much.
That's good. Next question.
Hi, Lynn. This is Denise. I wanted to get up here after Diane spoke because I think she really hit the nail on the head in talking about getting rid of fear. And I've been associated with you since 1974. And the first week that I decided to join the labor committees, I was punched in the face by an FBI person, and had to go to trial, which they ended up throwing out. I also know from the FBI what they did is they were calling my house. I'd answer the phone, and they would go through various things attacking me. So what I did, on the advice of my husband Roger, is when they called me, I would say, why don't you go and suck dead dogs' dicks? When I said that, I didn't get another call. Not another call. And this is, to me, you know, how we have to think about what the FBI is, and say it, you guys suck, you know, whatever. Then also I had a situation in around 1986, I think it was, and we were living at Yonkers at the time. What happened was my apartment was robbed. I had 5 cats at the time. The door was broken down and my cats were all sitting there saying, Mommy, where you been? We went in, they tore everything to pieces. They took our stereo equipment and all my operas. And basically, if you excuse me, I have dry mouth. And basically, what I really knew that they had been there, is I found that 2 of my cats were pregnant. So anyways, I just wanted to bring that up to you and see if you have any response to that.
This is you really get a fair description of the characteristics of the FBI. That's the FBI. That's what it is. It'll get your kittens sick. Get the kittens with the dog.
Okay, next. He's got to follow that.
Hi, Mr. LaRouche. I wanted to know, how do you, after all these years, I want to know, how do you understand your own personality? And particularly, I'm kind of curious to understand how you understand joy.
Oh, I have plenty of filled with that. I love that things. I love achievements. I love the futures of humanity. You know, and I love particularly the children who are not yet born, who will be the children who will actually develop something from them within themselves, which will bring mankind into a higher realm of understanding of what the mission of humanity is, and to create something new for humanity. Look, you have this group in China who are operating on the moon operation. It's going to take about 2 years to fulfill that immediate proposal on this thing. Now, what this will mean that you're talking about bringing human beings implicitly, or finding the vehicle for human beings who can become greater powers for mankind than ever known before. And that's what China is doing with the Moon Project. This is part of an outgrowth of the space program, which was the thing that was shut down by Obama. The space program was shut down by Obama. The future of the United States was shut down by Obama and by the British Queen, by all other freakish people. Huh? So therefore, the question is how do you bring out in people the potency to understand how to break through and to get control over solar system functions, over higher levels of functions, like the Moon Project that China is working on for the next 220 years. Now, this is the future. Mankind is not a creature of the earth. Mankind is a creature which is destined to be a species which permeates the influence of man throughout the universe in large degrees. And therefore you have to say you want to be a space person. You would like to be a successful space person, to have achievements like the people who have made achievements in that direction. Now, the people who are doing these things now have limited capabilities. But if those capabilities are developed, those people will also have greater powers of development. And mankind's destiny is there. It was that, at the point when we started this whole program, the space program, and it's there now still. But it's something that requires further development of the powers of mankind. If we will struggle to win the powers of mankind, mankind becomes a species not of Earth, but of the solar system and other more reaching areas. And that's what you want. You want to have your children, or at least some of them, living in space, like some of the people in China. We're going to spend time for 1 year or 2 years in terms of service in trying to test the program of the Moon program. And that means something beyond that. Those are the kinds of things that you want to do. Those are the things that of grandeur, which really make you feel good about yourself.
You have a follow-up? Yeah, I really admire that kind of ambition and drive. The question that I wanted to ask though was, how do you understand the phenomenology of personality, and how does that integrate into this thinking, the thinking that you promote around development? For instance, someone who surfs in California and just enjoys surfing, how does someone like that integrate into this program of development?
Probably doesn't. That probably doesn't work in the majority of cases. The point is that mankind is what is mankind? Now, mankind is a very peculiar species because we have done very little study of the matter. But we do know about Mars. We do know about the colonization of Mars. We do know about the colonization of parts of the various parts of the solar system and beyond. We do know that these areas are areas which are accessible to human control. And we are going to take charge of areas in which mankind will be able to express powers of development which mankind has never known before. That was the sun. We're going to go where mankind has never gone before. And that passion is the thing that really makes living good.
Then I wanted to follow up with you, and I thought, I mean, we're talking about the FBI a lot, and I thought I really enjoyed Denise's suggestions. In New York here, we're starting work now on several spirituals, and they're very beautiful, but they're powerful. And in leading into our last rehearsal, Diane summarized a particular story on Frederick Douglass from his autobiography on how he remained strong in will and defeated the uh, the slave breaker, a man who was had a reputation for breaking tough slaves. And Douglass defines that as a turning point in his life as a 17-year-old. And when you echo this with, or consider this with the population enduring psychological beatings and being as demoralized and as whipped as it is, particularly with Obama in office and having that type of fear, the entire rehearsal and the nature of the work takes on a more significant, deeper meaning. And it's something that, again, we're not merely singing. So in order for mankind to survive here in Manhattan, and for those, because this FBI thing keeps coming up, and you should have felt the shudder that took place in this room when you described the FBI in these very clear terms. So people are afraid, and we shouldn't act otherwise. But maybe if I keep singing, I'll get over it.
It's the destructive force. It's a cannibal. It's like a cannibal tribe. They come out and eat people. That's the effect.
And I'm from Pakistan. I have a question like aftermath of 9/11 has devastating socioeconomic problem in Pakistan, Afghanistan, and in the Middle East.
Excuse me.
Okay. I'm
There you
sorry.
go.
Okay. Okay. My name is Riaz Babar. So can I? Closer. Okay. My name is Riaz Babar. And my question is like aftermath of 9/11 has very devastating like socioeconomic problem in Pakistan, Afghanistan, and in the Middle East. So in your opinion, what do you think? What is coming up next to those areas or region?
Well, right now, what we're facing is the edge of a general thermonuclear war throughout the planet, which is ready to actually exterminate most of humanity, if not all of it. And that's what we're trying to prevent from happening. And the problem is that Obama is the key force designated to bring about that destruction of all humanity. So therefore, we've got to get Obama and what he represents and people who represent similar things, get them out of power and do it quick, because you have very little time left to make it.
Thank you.
Next question.
Good afternoon. My name is Leroy, and I need help with two of your points. One is that the space program was stopped by Obama, and given the fact that there is a military-industrial complex, how could he do that? Where did the money go that would have normally gone into that? Number two question, Mr. LaRouche, is how does the space program help my people get jobs on Earth? How does that help them? I'm looking at the space program as being that which would satisfy the need of some people who haven't been there, who haven't been in space. But in terms of the unemployed, whether you deal with New York, or whether you deal with Brazil, or any other country, how does that help them?
Well, first of all, if they don't get that advantage, then what do they get? They get destitute. So therefore, you have to fight to gain those powers, and you have to demand that the society create the dispensation of those powers. And we were doing that after World War II. The space program, which was launched largely as a moon project from Germany, from a certain tribe in Germany. And this program worked. Now, he had a problem in life because he had two kinds of living potential, and he couldn't get both of them. So he died. And then later on, the program the space program was continued, but then Obama came into existence. Now, I would say the best way to approach this is get rid of Obama's and all people like him. Take him out of power. Because if you provide the kind of technology which mankind deserves, and deserves to have access, then mankind will get those advantages. In my lifetime, we were still doing things, even under the conditions of the Depression. We were still making wonderful results under Franklin Roosevelt. What was wrong was the FBI. It was the FBI that killed the United States. And the FBI is an agent of the British system. Therefore, if you want a solution, get rid of the FBI. Get rid of the British system. Then you can win. If you just complain about it, you won't win. You'll lose. So therefore, you have to fight for the thing that will bring about the success. You won't get it just by waiting for it. You have to go out there and get it for everybody, for caring for everybody. Then people all have a common reason, a common motive to realize what a good life can be.
We have one other question, or we have more? Okay. Go ahead.
Hi, Mr. LaRouche. Christopher from New York.
A bit louder, please.
I'm sorry. How you doing?
Good.
Okay. Okay. In 98, Halliburton had bought Dresser Industries, which was responsible for asbestos removal in the World Trade Center, which was a money-losing project built by David Rockefeller. At the same time, you have the day before 9/11 on 9/10, Rumsfeld had come out with missing $2.3 trillion in the Pentagon, and then subsequently the attacks happened the day after. I mean, how does this all fall into a?
If you could just say it again, just repeat it. Some people here couldn't hear you.
Okay. In 98, you had Halliburton had purchased Dresser Industries, which was responsible for supposed asbestos removal in the World Trade Center. And also, the same time is that you have that they were subsequently Larry Silverstein had purchased the property 6 weeks prior to this. Now, 2.3 trillion was also reported on 9/10, reported missing for the Pentagon from Rumsfeld. How does this all fall into the same cabal?
I don't quite get it. I think The details are left out of that.
Lynn, are you able to hear me?
It was difficult. It was difficult because you were going back in your throat, and I couldn't pick you up.
He couldn't quite make the question out. Okay, I can try to.
Dennis, do you want to just summarize it?
Okay, are you able to hear me now, Lynn, on this microphone?
With you, I can hear.
Okay, fine. What happened was that the questioner was asking about two things. I remember the second one, which was Larry Silverstein's purchase of the World Trade Center some 6 months, I think, before it collapsed. The other was that the day before 9/11, Rumsfeld reported that there was $2.7 trillion missing from the Pentagon. And the first thing had something to do with an industry. Oh, Halliburton had done what? Okay, that Halliburton had a company called Dresser Industries, and they were responsible for removing asbestos from the Pentagon. Basically, these are all from the World Trade Center. I'm sorry. He's asking a series of questions related to 9/11 and whether or not these matters are pertinent to what happened the day of 9/11.
Yeah. Well, that's in that area, because there was a lot of things that happened in that area. It was a relatively short period of time, a lapse of time. It was a horrible show. I watched the whole thing, and I was watching the whole thing, with the planes, which had been taken over by the Saudis. The Saudis had been taken over a plane, been trained to do it, were trained by the Saudi institution and families themselves. Huh? And they took all these people, with those people going out, dying in the southern part of Manhattan. And it was being done always by the Saudis. Every killing there was done by the Saudis as their agents and their authorization. What happened to those people in the southern quarter of Manhattan was a general killing in that entire region. I watched it by, in telegraphic communication. I watched it. I saw cities, city structures that I'd known for years, and they were all melting away, destroyed. The death rate was awesome. I don't think I've got a strong stomach on this kind of thing. I was able to just realize and capture exactly what was going on. And there are many people in Manhattan who will say, I don't know about that. Well, the only reason they didn't get a chance was because people who there weren't enough places in Manhattan to fill up the death rows. This happened. This was what happened to the United States. This is what happened to Britain. I mean, to the Manhattan area. This is what happened. I watched it. I watched it on a photographic tracking device. I saw it. And I saw what the reaction was, and I saw the members of Congress covering over on this massive killing of people in Manhattan. It is still treated that way. No, this is something which is unforgivable. And the FBI, of course, is a typical expression that kind of thing, because it's the FBI that protects that operation. And every member of the FBI who's culpable of this thing should be kicked out of office. Is a limited thing. This is an unforgivable crime, which happened in Manhattan. And the crime was committed by the Saudis, was committed by the British system. And it's been going on still today. It's still going on around the world today. And in the United States, there's no will to deal with this thing, to speak of. But if we don't deal with that thing and recognize what it is, and don't act on that principle, then there's not going to be much left on the planet.
Okay, this is going to be our final question.
Yeah, this is a tall girl, Lyndon. Sherry from Manhattan. Can you hear me?
I hear you.
Very good. The first time I read Children of Satan 3, I was appalled by the liking to a mold where the mycelia perhaps had completely consumed a strawberry. And yesterday it was perfect.
Ask a question to him.
Okay, I'm going to, but I just wanted to say, you have positive here, you have negative here. Having read The Children of Satan and then just finished Doping, you really have to wonder how you carry on when the people that are supposed to represent you are this mold. I don't know if I've made my point correctly, but I think you understand. Prometheus is having a hard time again. So would you comment, please? How do you change so that we can be more builders than those who are destroyed?
Well, I know what I do. And I don't think that what I do is any different than what you should be doing, if you could do it.
Let me take that down. Okay. Okay. I think you finished. I got the answer. All right. Okay. Can you make me out, Lynn? Is this clear?
I hear you, yes.
Okay, good.
They did intimidate you.
It's not going to do that. It's not going to happen. There are many people that came today that are new. And there are a lot of people who were here who have been part of working with you for a long time. So it's an arc. But I particularly would just say about the last two answers you gave, it's sort of important that people not pretend they're more afraid than they actually are. In other words, we can do what you have outlined. It is clear that we are capable, both as Americans and as New Yorkers, to carry out what you have initiated. I mean, the Manhattan Project has been going on for a while. You've been here week after week. Yes, for people who are new, it's your first time. But I'd like to just say something, or have you say something in conclusion about not merely the capacity for fighting, you've already demonstrated that, but why is it that when people join together, as they do, like say, for example, in a chorus or in an army, why is it that they can always actually triumph over evil if they bother to make their humanity the center of their fight rather than some little issue or some particular, concern?
Well, I think that the problem is that people are not willing to stand up to what the actually apparent requirements are. Like, the history of professionals or students, for example, good students, they will work hard in order to achieve what they know is important. And when people lose that sense of being charged with, I have to be committed to this thing, I'm for this, I have to support it, I have to invoke people to understand this, to see it for themselves. That kind of thing, that's what the issue is. What's the meaning of a birth of a child? What defines the nature of the birth of a child? What's the difference of a successful birth of a child or the successful development of a child or the progressive advantages given to a child and achievements which a growing child may be able to achieve? These are the things which are crucial. And the important thing is, how do we drive society to understand that this is what the issue is? That is the issue. And they ought to stick to that issue and find other things will then come to them.
Okay, very good. So I think that's probably your summary. Am I right? You got anything else for us?
I'm happy.
Okay, fine. Very good. So we'll see you again next week after we do some work.
Okay, have fun.